Previously on the Salawag's Why It's Great Gut Reaction. Get up, get down with the sickness. Motherfucker, get up, get down with the sickness. Fucker, get up, get down with the thickness. Madness is the gift that's been given to me. Madness is the gift that's been given to me. It's podcasting time. Aloha nerds, and welcome to the Salawag's Final Cut. This is the ultimate armchair podcast where I review a movie and then at the end decide that I can make it better somehow. But it's not as simple as I get to say I can have whatever I want. Well, essentially, there's rules. I can have any actor in any location I want, but I only have 2 days to shoot and 1 week to edit. That's ultimately the goal. That's the ultimate armchair critic podcasting that I do at the end of the episode. And then you can let me know if you like my idea in the comments. Or if you have a better one. I'm definitely down to hear a better one. Today's lucky movie for me to discuss is Joker, Folie Á Deux. And up front, I will be spoiler free. And then when I get into spoilers, I'm going to celebrate the goods before I say what I think would make the movie better. That's the format. With spoiler-free thoughts, for those of you who did not watch my gut reaction, I'm going to say spoiler-free thoughts again. I'll try to make it even shorter. First off, just my reaction to it is that I really enjoyed the majority of the movie. I understand why there was the popular opinion was that it's not good based on the ending. I could see, and to be fair, there were parts that kind of wore me down. My initial gut reaction, I was very positive about the movie because it just kept doing things that, as a filmmaker of 17 years, as a student of movies, and as a fellow weirdo, as a fellow crazy person, I really appreciated what the movie was kind of going for. But nonetheless, this being a show about how I would change a movie to more my liking, there were things that wore on me. And again, it's mostly in that last third of the movie. I really feel like the first 2/3 of this movie are so good. Like, if you're a fan of the first Joker, I think this Joker, I could not have expected what a Joker sequel would be, considering this universe. I mean, Todd Phillips, the director, said already, this is not the Joker that fights Batman, but maybe it's the one that inspires that Joker. And sort of the inspiration part, the consequence part of everything that happens in the first movie is really what this movie's about, where we are 2 years after the events of the first Joker, catching Arthur Fleck, also known as Joker, having gone through 2 years of serving time in Arkham Asylum, the mental institution for the criminally insane. Right away, I loved this movie when it starts off with this kind of animated intro that kind of shows Arthur Fleck and his shadow self kind of duking it out. I don't want to spoil what happens beyond that, but just the fact that it starts out with this seemingly Looney Tunes-esque Joker animated cartoon. It was so unexpected. But I love that it had that, because the cartoon in many ways tells you what's going to happen in the rest of this movie. But also, it kind of sums up what happened in the first movie and gives us a little potential window into the what's happened between the two movies in the intervening years. But I think it's really fun. It's a really great intro. It's very offbeat, much like how Arthur Fleck is. And you see right up front, he's not having a great time in jail. He's very quiet in this first chunk of the movie. And it's Lady Gaga. When Lady Gaga appears as Harley Quinn, the movie starts to brighten up, and it brightens up a lot. And I think that middle third is probably, I don't know, the first 2/3 of this movie are so good because the build to Lady Gaga, which it doesn't take too long to get to her, but the build to Joker and Lady Gaga having their relationship, it feels very natural. I almost envy it. It's so sweet at first. But as the movie trickles on and we get into the second half, now, like I said, I like the first 2/3, but as we get into the second half, yeah, maybe there's a lot of musical numbers because, and this is a big swing on the filmmaker's part, but the musical numbers are really the communication between Joker and Harley. Their love is a musical kind of love. And if you watch the first movie, music is a part of Arthur's story. When he makes his first kills in the first movie, he's hiding in the bathroom and he starts all of a sudden, rather than doing what normal people do, hide the gun or change your clothes or whatever, he all of a sudden has this kind of weird religious dance experience. And that's where the composer's beautiful music, Hildur Gutenator, dang it, I practiced this and I forgot already. I'm sorry. But the fantastic music from the composer, Hildur Gutenator, the fantastic music comes in and you see him kind of doing this weird dance, and this unusual thing is the spirit of Arthur, that he's got this music in his soul. And that is why, as that first movie picks up and he starts to become more Joker-like, the music comes in. That's his shadow coming to true form. But in this movie, it's true love. So now the music takes a different form. It's a lot of popular music from the time. We go back and forth between these sort of fantasy segments that I think are beautiful, where we're seeing Joker and Harley have their singing together. And then we have these sort of real life ones where it's kind of the way they shoot it is so particular, where it's kind of man on the street. You feel like you could be there. I like to think of this as kind of like it's kind of like the musical about people who are singing in the shower. You know, maybe that sounds bad to people wanting a certain kind of movie experience, but you gotta figure what this movie is about. It's about a crazy person who's offbeat from the get-go. So the movie is just taking the form of its main character. You know what I mean? Much more than the first movie did. The first movie played with perception a little bit, but this movie, like the movie itself, is taking the form of Arthur Fleck and Joker and what that looks like. I disagree with a lot of the negative reviews of this movie about it being 3 different movies. I don't think that at all. If you see my gut reaction, I go more into it. But ultimately, I feel like if you're paying attention to the premise of the story, Arthur has a lawyer who's trying to get him into a regular mental institution because she believes that everything he's done as Joker is the product of his abuse as a child. And she thinks he's not a threat to society. He's just a person who has been abused far too much and reached his last straw. And this other personality came out. So what we're seeing is, like, with Harley loves what Joker did, and he's an inspiration to her. So she wants nothing but the Joker to come out. And so literally, if you look at it under that lens, it's not 3 different movies. What it is it's the angel and the demon on Arthur's shoulder. And the problem is that he likes what both of them are promising him. You know what I mean? And that's the real issue of the movie. It's not 3 different movies. It's, you know, the court battle represents the battle for Arthur's soul. And the prison is the purgatory he's been living in since the events of the first movie. So whatever he chooses, whichever way he goes, is going to affect how the ending turns out. And so, you know, I don't agree. I don't know. I could not find any interview where Todd Phillips said, yes, this is an FU to the fans. So if you have that interview, let me know, you know, but please calm down. You know what I mean? Like, I want this place, these comments, if we have any discussions, to be a place of respect. Let's treat each other with respect here. That's all I'm asking. If you come on here all hot and bothered, you're saying a bunch of negative, intense stuff that doesn't need to be said, I'm just going to block you or delete your comment or however it works. I never had to do that before. So let's please keep it, diplomatic. That's all I'm asking. If you got the link, I'll check it out, but let's keep it diplomatic. But yeah, that being said, to me, I felt like I could see where the movie was coming from, especially understanding the first movie, because the first time I watched the first movie, I loved the ending, but I thought the majority of the movie was very heavy-handed and kind of almost unnecessary to make its own point. Although, point made, whereas I feel like this movie, the reason I really enjoy it and I don't understand why people don't like it, is especially the first 2/3 are so fluid. The movie's really moving pretty smoothly. If you're following what's going on, everything I've said is basically what's happening. The angel on one shoulder, the devil on the other. I think it's pretty understandable kind of movie. I do think, though, yes, the ending, without saying what it is, it's shocking. It's unfortunate. And it's not what any of us wanted. Definitely not what I wanted. But that doesn't mean, to me, that because the movie didn't give me what I wanted, that it's a bad movie. But I do feel like Joker is so divisive. It's so much fun. I can't help but kind of bring it up on this podcast and say, well, how could things have been differently, or how could things maybe have been better for the audience that was not disappointed? Because in my gut reaction, my real gut reaction after this movie was just like, geez, I understand people not liking the ending, but this movie does not deserve the disgusting words that have come out of people's mouths about it. I don't even understand where that's coming from. Again, especially with the first half, you can tell a credible, experienced, talented filmmaker is making this film. And I felt like he learned his lessons from the first movie, but doubled down on what he felt mattered for this movie. Because I felt, again, the first movie, very heavy-handed. I didn't feel quite as much for Arthur. But this time around, with all of that context, with that as the background, watching how the guards are treating him in the beginning of this movie, you know what I mean? It's really grim. This movie is really grim at the beginning of the movie. And then, of course, it ends in an unexpected way. So, I don't want to spoil it. But I just feel on the whole, this is at the very least, it's a very well-made movie. And I'm not just talking about craftsmanship. I think it is a good story. So, when we get into the spoilers and celebrating the goods, that's what I'm going to talk about. I really feel like this movie deserves another chance from people, but I don't think it will get that for a few years, maybe. I think a few years, it's going to take some time for people to swallow this pill. Obviously, people were very emotionally affected by it. But I saw it, I thought I saw a pretty great movie. Again, I just didn't want that ending, but I don't think that necessarily means it's the wrong ending. But let's get into some spoilers, let's celebrate the goods, and then let's talk about how this movie could be made better by me. Matthew Salanoa, filmmaker of 17 years, director of the award-winning 007 I Only Need One. Oh yeah, that may have been 8 years ago, but I'm going to ride that train until I get on a better one. Spoilers now! Okay, welcome to the Celebrate the Goods spoiler section. Of course, I will be complaining about the movie in this section, but the point of this section is to celebrate the goods. Right off the top, just this cartoon opening. Again, I talked about it in the gut reaction. The cartoon opening features Arthur Fleck fighting with his shadow, and his shadow wins for a moment. But then, at the moment of winning and doing his deeds, that's when the police show up, and then the shadow switches back to Arthur and hides and lets Arthur get beat up by the police. And this happens just before we cut to 2 years later, Arkham Asylum. Right off the bat, the movie is telling us that after his victorious coming out as Joker, Arthur Fleck was horrifically beaten up and abused by the police, by the whole system. And when we meet him at the top of this movie, he's even worse than he was at the beginning of the first movie. The movie's literally telling you why right up front with the animated intro. Like I said, the first movie was super heavy-handed, right? I mean, it starts off with Fleck being beat up by teenagers. It's like, good God, like you're beat up by a bunch of kids who are smaller than you. And he doesn't even defend himself in any way, shape, or form. And I'm not saying teenagers can't beat up an adult. I'm just saying, like, it's not a bodybuilder, it's not a villain, it's kids. Kids are beating this guy up. That's how low on the totem pole he is. But at least he starts off and he's dancing and he enjoys his job. You know, it's like we get a sense of what he matters to him. And all that dancing and stuff, he's genuinely happy there. You know, and that's a clue right from the start with what his internal character truly is. But when we start off with this movie, there's no dancing. He is solemn. He is quiet. Everyone's commenting on it. And I got the distinct feeling it's very much like in most movies when you see a hero sort of rising in their ranks, but then they enter a situation where a group of people beat the hero up and basically break their morale. And then in the very following scenes, when that hero is crossing these other characters, they're like, oh yeah, you're not so brave now, are you? Sort of things, scenes like that you've seen before in movies. That's the feeling I got right off the bat. So to me, the movie is telling you that Joker's just been horrifically beaten up by the system while being in prison. And it kind of is a great motivation for why Catherine Keener's lawyer would want to look out for him. She sees like, geez, like this guy's the product of abuse and you guys are being even worse to him. So I just love that up front, when you look at the storytelling, we get this very comedic Looney Tunes presentation of what is really awful exposition. Was not saying any words for it. You just have to be thinking when you're watching it. And even that first, this amazing opening shot this amazing shot in the movie. It's a very long shot where it ends with Arthur walking into the cell with his cigarette, and he's still very quiet, and the cell is dark, and then the door slams, and this little window of light is on him, and even that light closes, and he's in the dark. And right from the jump, I felt like he's going to die at the end of this movie, because it looked like he was sort of laying down in a coffin in a weird kind of way. You know, there was just something about it that was just, it felt like what the ending was going to happen. Even the guy that kills Arthur, he's set up throughout this movie. He pops up, and you know that the way he's looking at things with his fanaticism, something's up with him. He's not quite right either. I don't necessarily like his dialogue at the end, but then again, they're offbeat people, and that's what they do in these movies. But that's fine. That's whatever. But Lady Gaga, I thought a really interesting, engaging version of Harley Quinn. There was something about her. I really, all these little looks that she would give, like she was really in this character so well. I felt there was some kind of aspect to it that I felt was even more true to the Harley Quinn I know from the cartoon than what we got from Margot Robbie. I know that's going to be a terrible thing to say to a lot of you people, and I don't mean any disrespect to Margot Robbie. I just don't feel that anything they did with Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn was right. I thought Margot Robbie herself, her voice, her look, that was right, but the direction, the writing, I think was so far off base in every single one of those movies. Birds of Prey came closest, but it was still just a far cry from what I wanted. It just seemed more generic and crowd-pleasing. Whereas this movie, she's not generic. She's obsessed with Arthur. And I think my favorite scenes with her are those early scenes where they're just starting to have chemistry and connection with each other. And they don't sing too much. She sings a little bit to him, and he gets called away by a guard when they get their first chance to talk. and then the singing is over. And I thought if that really should have been the sort of editing attitude, regardless of how it was shot, that should have been the editing attitude to the live action singing. When it was clear that they were just singing to each other in the real world, and it's the sort of singing in the shower musical, I really feel like whenever we were in the real world, maybe as a joke within the movie itself, the singing always gets cut off. But actually, my favorite form of her singing in the real world is actually when she's going into court the first time, and just the shot that they choose, it feels so old school, such an old school wide shot, where you see the actor's face and then the camera kind of just turns and then you just kind of see them walking. There's something about it that just felt, again, so very man on the street, very much like you're there, and she's just singing to herself as she's going into court. And it's so unusual and weird, but it's communicating her relationship to Arthur, because their relationship is music. Todd Phillips in interviews talks about how in the first movie, when they were making it, he discovered with Joaquin Phoenix that in Arthur Fleck's heart is music and dance, and so that is built into the movie as Arthur Fleck self-actualizes and becomes Joker. But that also represents that when he meets Harley and he has this love story, what seems to be a beautiful love story, then that music explodes back out of him. It enables him to talk and sing again. Well, it is that wonderful feeling of that fresh love, that honeymooning love, that is captured in this first chunk of the movie. And I think that I really loved all that stuff. Harley Quinn setting the fire. My absolute favorite Joker and Harley scene is when they escape during the fire and they're dancing in the middle of the street as an ambulance passes by. And again, the way it's just shot in this very bizarre kind of like you're just on the street watching them. You know, it's not like I don't know how to shoot kind of shot. It's a very like you are on the sidewalk watching these people dance to a fire in front of an ambulance. And like, what is a better image to show you how offbeat these people are, how they are not normal people. You know what I mean? The first movie has this piece of paper that says the funniest thing about having mental illness is everyone expects you to act normal. And Todd Phillips says about the animated intro that the whole point of that intro is to make you feel like this movie is being made by crazy people. And that is how the movie feels. It feels very, very off and strange. And yet for me, at least as far as the first 2/3 go, I'm all for it. I feel like even though it's off, it's got its own kind of rhythm. You know, its offbeat rhythm is still a rhythm that is working for me. So I just absolutely love that stuff. That was my favorite stuff in the movie. One of my favorite scenes in the movie is the Gary Puddle scene, where again Joker shows how little he is socially capable when he goes into this very bizarre, and obviously it's going to be off-putting to the audience, but again, this is a reminder, this is the character that you're worshiping. Okay, when he's in the Murray scene at the end of Joker, he is also putting on those very strange voices, and it's off-putting and it's not quite right, and you don't really know where he's coming from, you know. And it's not until his emotions become angry and sharpened by the end of the scene that he starts to speak normally and speak clearly. And that's kind of how his character works, is that when he's trying to have fun, he doesn't make any sense at all. Whatever is funny to him is like a strange child, you know what I mean? But it's when he's angry that his thoughts become clear and focused and he can communicate, which is kind of why the Joker is such a strong shadow for him. All of that I felt so strongly, and really the actor who plays Gary Puddles, his performance, like he was great in the first movie, but his performance in this one scene tops everything he did in the first movie. Well, first of all, in the first movie, he was really just there to witness that murder. but his performance, getting his whole story in his dialogue. I already say it in gut reaction, but there's a number of times where this movie makes me feel like it's going off the rails, and probably to the regular audience member, just that feeling alone means it's off the rails. But for me, it's like that when Arthur Fleck is talking to Steve Coogan as the brash ambush journalist reporter trying to get the hard story and all this stuff, and Arthur Fleck starts singing, but he's singing to Harley, and he sings so long, and this is the first time in the movie, and it's still pretty early, right? It's at least the midway point. This is the first time in the movie where I felt the music was out of place and wasn't doing anything. Well, not that it wasn't doing anything for me, but I felt like, why is it still going? Why is it still going? And then it connects to Harley watching him sing on television. And as soon as it did that, I was like, okay. From that point on, even no matter how weird it felt, I just recognized that, okay, that's what this is about. These musical sequences mean that they are communicating with each other on a whole nother level, and this is almost like spiritual. Even though it's through the television, it's like the spiritual connection is being lit up between them. And then she bashes the window and takes the TV, another favorite scene. I think she just has such a perfect disaffected Harley, you know? The Harley Quinn from the cartoon, that actress has passed, rest in peace. I don't think there's a better version of her and Mark Hamill's Joker than in the flashback sequence of Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker, where we see there's a whole storyline where Joker and Harley kidnap Robin and essentially brainwash him into being a young Joker so that they can have a kid. And that is such a dark... The cartoon had never gone that dark as far as I remember. But that was just the darkest, bleakest episode of the cartoon. Or really, it's a TV movie, but that little flashback story was so dark. And it does give you all these little flavors of how Harley and Joker are. You know, she's really nuts. You know what I mean? But I didn't feel either Margot or Lady Gaga represented that. But there was just something about her obsession with Arthur to the point of this kind of madness that I felt was right. Where I was like, this is how crazy Harley should be about Joker. You know what I mean? She should be so obsessed. If he's on TV singing to her, she's gonna bust. And it's a TV inside of a store window of all things. She's gonna bust through that window, grab that TV, and hold it close to her chest because it means that much to her. That, to me, in a single image, was the perfect representation of the real Harley Quinn's absolute devotion to Joker. You know, and Harley Quinn was created in that cartoon, and she would do anything for Joker. And that was just, and literally she says that in this movie. I really didn't care for the I'm done with Joker storyline stuff. I was like, you know what, it's not that you have to be interested in Joker, but you could just be on your own adventure and not have to bring him. I don't, like, come on, like, you two are devoted to each other. At least to a certain point, as Batman Beyond explores. But certainly your entire younger days are devotion. And that is part of the things that I didn't want that I'll get to. But yeah, there's just these specific images that I felt, and these specific moments that I felt really were just top-notch moments in terms of storytelling, in terms of connecting the characters, stuff so good, I refuse to accept the world saying it's trash. I'm like, you can all think it's trash. I'm just gonna agree to disagree with you, okay? I'm just gonna agree to disagree. You can condescend to me and say I'm an idiot, but you know, that's fine. What else is new? All right, what else is new? Bring it on. But yeah, I was just, I love these images. I love these moments that both rang true to the characters. But again, remember, this is not the Joker that fights Batman. Why Harley Quinn is there is bizarre, but this is not the Joker that fights Batman. So we have to keep remembering that. It's cool, you know. I love the love story. I love how far it goes. I love how the fantasies, when you watch them, you realize they really every time we're in the fantasy singing sequence, it is Arthur expressing what he's feeling. You know, when we get to another number and Harley is kind of trying to take the stage away from Joker, he notices that. And then again, that's also a very genuine Joker Harley moment. Like, anytime Harley Quinn tries to be more funny or do her own thing in front of Joker, anything he doesn't like, it's like, what? But usually he'll hit her with a big hammer next. But yeah, so but in that scene, this is right after Catherine Keener has told him, hey, she's not who she says she is. She's actually the child of wealthy parents. She lives with them, and she checked herself into the psychiatric ward. No one put her there. She's never been from your neighborhood. This is all nonsense, and she's using you for attention. And I think, you know, one of the things I wanted at the end of the first Joker, when, this is going to seem like a sidebar, but it's going to circle back. One of the things I wanted when Joaquin Phoenix was talking to Robert De Niro at the end of the first Joker was for him to just say, look, those guys were attacking me. They were drunk, they were out of their minds, and they were attacking me on the train. And I literally thought I was going to die. I've already been jumped and attacked before, and nobody cared or did anything, and that's why I got a gun. But he just can't say these things. Instead, he says things that are unclear and obscure, because he just doesn't have the social and mental tools to communicate how he wants to communicate, or whatever it is that he has to say. He does not have those skills and tools. He is stuck in that awkward 8-year-old phase of, I can't really talk about what's on my mind. I don't know how to put words to it. I don't have the vocabulary for it. I don't have the therapy or the communication experience to say what I'm feeling to you. And frankly, a lot of people have this problem. Even with myself, sometimes I might express myself in anger and rub some people the wrong way, but what I'm yelling about isn't actually the thing I'm angry about. It is the thing they say women do all the time. I firmly believe everyone does it all the time. Maybe women are just more famous for it because they are more articulate. But yeah, because I've definitely seen both sides do that. But yeah, his arrested development is his condition, or it's part of his condition. So he can't just tell Murray that, hey, these guys were beating me up. I was defending myself, okay? And that same gun I got fired over because, you know, the coworker who gave it to me made my boss think I was trying to buy it from him, and he was really just trying to throw it my way, and he made me think it was for me. He could have just said everything that happened in the movie and maybe had a case for himself, you know, and instead he just says all these weird things. He says weird jokes, and he says they couldn't carry a tune, referring to the fact that they were singing when they were beating him up. So again, that's like a little kid joke reference. It's like, that's not funny. So in the court, if you're expecting him to talk normally again, if you're, for all these fantasy scenes, if you're expecting him to just verbalize that, man, I feel betrayed by Harley, You know what I mean? Granted, maybe you would prefer they just cut to it. But the point of it is that this is his emotional experience. And I think people do probably understand that. But this is part of what I'm going to get to when I say how I would change the movie. And it's probably not even an original notion, but that's ultimately where this podcast is going. So, but yeah, absolutely love the Gary Puddle scene. I love how at the end of that scene he says back to Arthur what Arthur said to him in the first movie: "You're the only one that never made fun of me." But unfortunately, this time around, it's like, but now you're scaring me, and you've scared me more than I've ever been scared in my life. And you see those words hit Arthur, you know. And what I appreciate about the movie is its willingness to, I think people take it as if they're being backstabbed or betrayed or somehow, well, did you lie about the first movie? What is this? I don't understand. Why is Joker suddenly doubting himself? You know what I mean? Because he's not Joker. He's a guy who went through way too much stuff and he got pushed too far and he werewolfed, as he said. But now, if you really appreciate the context that he's been in this extremely abusive relationship with these Arkham guards for 2 years solid. Again, Catherine Keener's trying to get him away from them and to get him into a hospital where he can be cared and treated properly. And that's really all he's asking for and all he needs. Even when he confronts Thomas Wayne in the bathroom, that's what he verbalizes it. Can't people just be decent? Can't people just have some compassion? But unfortunately, again, you offbeat weirdo, you touched his son's face and were very creepy and nearly strangled Alfred. So naturally, Thomas Wayne punched you in the face. But no one can understand without the whole conversation that he's only acting this way because he is deranged by trauma and bizarre, awful experiences. And he himself can't communicate that, again, because of arrested development. So as long as you have those things understood, all the things I mentioned, what the director was thinking, how music represents his spirit, how he has arrested development, how you got the angel and the demon, Harley Quinn being the enabler. What I love about Beetlejuice, I talked about that in the previous episode. Beetlejuice has this character played by Justin Theroux, who Beetlejuice calls an enabler, and he is. He, in every single way, is pushing Lydia, played by Winona Ryder, to do things that she wants to do that she knows aren't good for her because it'll benefit him. He's an enabler and a manipulator. But honestly, that's not too far off from what Beetlejuice himself tried to do, minus the enabling. That's not, it's the reverse. He wants an enabler. But he manipulated Lydia in the first movie, promising to help out, save Gina Davis and Alec Baldwin. But he was just tricking her so he could have his powers unleashed. And so in many ways, and both of them trying to get some kind of marriage for some kind of reason, a reason that it is explained in Beetlejuice. But that's just sort of one character, and part of what I felt didn't make that movie work was that should have been either fleshed out or taken out a little bit more. I think a lot of that movie felt that way, and I think it was really more of an issue of editing flow. But you can watch that video for that. But essentially, with that enabling theme in mind, that manipulative enabling theme in mind, director Todd Phillips says that the meaning of shared madness typically means when one person is sort of scooping up another person and trying to separate them from everyone else so that they can elevate their own importance to them. Sounds familiar. But, this is a thing people do to each other. I've been through it. I have been through it myself. I'm not going to get into that today. But yeah, so in essence, I mean, this is the fleshed out form of that. This is where the entire movie is about that. Every time there's a conflict with Catherine Keener, it's because of Harley Quinn's meddling. That she just wants Joker to come out. She is the audience. We all just want Joker to come out. And what I wanted from this movie Because I could see this angel demon story going on. I'm like, this is good stuff. This is juicy stuff. And when Harley Quinn goes directly to Catherine Keener and says, "You're making him look stupid out there," and Catherine Keener's like, "No, you are screwing up. He needs help." You know, and it's like, you see the clash of perspectives, you know what I mean? And it really, the truth is, Catherine Keener's right. You know, Arthur Fleck just wants compassion and love and to be treated right. And he will not be a threat to anybody. Whereas Harley Quinn just wants Joker so badly, she's fine with him losing it again. Because, again, Catherine Keener explains, she's studied psychiatry, so she's basically ahead of the ball. This whole movie doesn't exist without Harley Quinn fighting for Joker to come out. But the problem is that the real world is just so pervasively awful. When Joker makes fun of the guards on TV, they pay him back, and it's off screen, whatever it is they do. But you see it's so horrible that Joker, who has come out, has been reduced back to the quiet Arthur Fleck of the beginning of the movie. But something about him is even quieter than it was when he said nothing at the start of the movie. And that, I think, nobody wanted that. Nobody wanted this movie to get darker. It was going up and up and up and up, and I think people would have put up with the weird musical bits or whatever they didn't like musically if this ended the way we wanted. You know, and instead, the Gary Puddles scene hits him in the chest. "You are the only one who didn't make fun of me." That's what Arthur said to him in the first movie. Gary was the only one who didn't make fun of him. And now here he is as Joker making fun of him. Yeah, that scene's heavy. But then we also have the guards. Again, they beat him so badly, he's quiet like the top of the movie, but you see in his face that he's even further gone. And then they kill his only friend right outside his cell. And in those moments, it's unstated. But Joker's music is gone, so there's no more music to tell you what he's feeling. It's just that emptiness, the empty coldness. And so, in the following scene, when he says he's not Joker, and he owns up to his things, I thought that was again, not what I wanted, but it was kind of like, well, that's a swing, that's another swing. Like, damn, okay, damn, the world beat you. The world beat you. It's hard. It's a hard pill to swallow. But I'm almost okay with it until the finale, where he gets killed, and then the guy who kills him carves his face, which I didn't necessarily like the association to Heath Ledger's Joker. Even if it's not supposed to be Heath Ledger's Joker, I just don't like the association. I really wish they just zoomed in a bit and just didn't show that's what he did. I would have done that scene totally differently, but I'll get to that soon. But, celebrating the goods, I just thought so much of this movie it's a real movie. You know what I mean? And I hear the argument but it's a comic book property. But look, okay, even comic books have Elseworlds, have what ifs, have multiverses where characters go through something completely different, such as the famous Flashpoint paradox, where Bruce Wayne is killed and Bruce Wayne's father is a Batman with guns and his mother becomes the Joker. Okay, so there's every single even to the comic book form. I mean, look at Dark Knight Returns. It's extremely grim. It's a very, very dark take on the Batman character. Even Long Halloween, which is not even technically Elseworlds, but I mean, gritty, awful stuff happens in that story that maybe doesn't happen in a different Batman comic book, right? Every comic book, every interpretation, even though Watchmen is technically original characters, who are these original characters actually representing, right? It's Superman, Batman, The Question, whatever you want it to be. They're essentially swap outs for other known characters. So comic books do this. Even comic books have alternate versions and alternate interpretations. And truth be told, it does not seem like Warner Brothers is vaguely interested in giving you an adaptation on a comic book. I don't know why. 300 and Watchmen are probably their most successful movies outside of, the Batman movies, including Christopher Nolan's trilogy. And yet, adapt a comic book? No. Filmmaker do whatever he want, and then I tell him how it's not good, but also let him do it. That literally, that thinking, that way of doing movies has got to stop. It's what ruined all of the Marvel movies prior to the MCU, and what started to ruin them during the whole Disney struggle of power over who was really in charge of the storytelling process of the Marvel movies. Just pumping stuff out ruined their quality control. So it really matters that we just accept that, look, DC is now going through, in all of these movies, it's stretching its legs for the first time, giving us characters it never gave us before on the feature film scale. And they're nervous because they haven't done it. They're going through the growing pains that Marvel went through between Blade and Ghost Rider 2. You know what I mean? Even Amazing Spider-Man 2. All those movies happened into the MCU, including the X-Men movies, right? But there was so many hits and misses, but there was also more misses than hits on the Marvel side because they were stretching their legs. And what was, it always came down to the same problems. And it wasn't until Kevin Feige made Marvel happen, made it be its own company, its own studio, that we finally got something more akin to what we were expecting based on comic book properties. Now, of course, they've kind of gone away from that again, but it's because they're trying to give storytellers the freedom to tell stories. You know what I mean? And that's what's happening with these Joker movies. It's like Todd Phillips made the Hangover movies. He made very popular movies that made so much money for Warner Brothers. So clearly he's a competent filmmaker who knows what to do. And so you can't just look at it as, oh, he's a newbie, so what are you doing, or any of that. It's just, no, he has a story he wants to tell. He wants to tell it a certain way. And because of those reasons, because I consider him a valid artist at this point, because I really don't know his work, but I mostly know the first two Hangovers. I think I saw the third one, I'm not sure. I just know really the first two Hangovers and these two movies. But I mean, he's going for a valid sense of making some art. And so I cannot just toss my opinion of this movie to the wind because it didn't do things that I want. And even then, it's already not the thing I want. This is not the Joker who fights Batman, right? So that's not what I want. I want the Joker that fights Batman. If you already know it's not the thing that you want, then how can you have expectations for it to be the thing that you want? But that's kind of what I'm going to get to in the what would I do section. So that being said, again, I really appreciate everything this movie was going for. I do think it's a better movie than the first in many ways. Although, granted, I think it needed another week in the editing room. But that being said, that's what we're talking about next. Meet me in Ultimate Armchair Mode. The Salawag's final cut begins now. All right, welcome to the ultimate armchair mode, where I get to say how I would want the movie to go. But before I get exactly to that, let's just talk about what I think people wanted, and certainly what I wanted. We all saw the trailers of this movie, watching Joker beat the judge senseless and it seems like he's committing all these heinous crimes in the court. And to me, like, right off the bat, those misleads, because it's the trailer, it's you don't know where it goes in the movie. I think those misleads, when those became fantasies, must have pissed off a lot of people right off the bat. Because it hit me too. When that happened, I was like, this is a fantasy? So what's going to happen in the court for real? You know? It was just like, oh no, man. Okay. I don't want to say put off, because that makes it seem like I was really upset with it. But it was surprising to me. I was like, oh man, what's going to happen then? Is the explosion even going to be real? And they push it till that explosion happens, you know? But right up front, what I would have wanted, like, okay, let's say those were fantasies. I still wanted it to be Harley who blew up the court, because it seems to me like the story essentially set it up with her being an arson, and she already sets the fire at Arkham earlier. But the fact that Arthur says, I wish I could blow it all up and start again, when she leaves because she's upset that he has rejected the Joker name, I felt like if she was truly fanatical, she should be blowing it up, and it should be her that comes up to pick him up and bring him out of the court. And then maybe she either hands him off to those other guys or takes him herself. Like, if you want to stick with him choosing to be Arthur, this could be a moment of rejection. You know what I mean? So that, to me, the first thing that I would shoot, which I think it could take a half day probably, or maybe a half day. I would shoot quickly. If I was shooting it, or if for some reason the miraculous thing happened where Todd Phillips came to me and said, hey, Matt, you got the mind like Spielberg. Tell me, Mr. Genius podcaster who's made that one award-winning short 8 years ago. This is terrible. Tell me what you think about this movie. Is there anything you would suggest? And I would say, okay, sure. That would be my first suggestions. Like, do you got a reshoot day? Harley Quinn's got to be the one who blows up the thing. There should be no question that it's her. And she should stomp up there with authority and anger. I don't like the scene where she puts the gun to her head. I think, no. You know what I mean? No. I think for her, she should be so far gone into her obsession that she heard him say that and was like, okay, I'll blow it up for you. And that this was like her last big gesture of, I'm yours, baby. You know what I mean? And then what I would do editing wise is we have that great dance sequence where they get married. I mean, that is a wonderful sequence. I actually really like it. Again, it felt long on the tooth at the time. But what I would do differently is when that explosion happens and then we're with Arthur, and if we shoot this, what I think would be a half day, her walking up through the rubble and picking him up, or not literally picking up, but helping him get up and helping him bring him outside down the steps. But as she's bringing him out the rubble, I would edit in that fantasy sequence of them dancing and having her come down the stairs and have them both dancing next to each other. I would put that in there as a sort of cross edit as they're coming down the stairs. That in a way he feels the love again, but when he realizes, oh, she's still calling me Joker, have her say the words, I did this all for you, baby. Come on, don't pretend that you're Arthur. You're not Arthur, you're Joker. Truly have this be her penultimate battle for his soul, you know, in this moment. And just have it be clear. Look, again, you set up she's the arson. She should be the one blowing up the place. And have him, if you want to stick with it, have him reject her there. And she literally, this is what the line should be. It should be, Joker, come with me. I'll do anything you ask. And then he asks, can you call me Arthur? And then she just looks at him like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? And just to have the looks exchanged. Maybe he has no more words, and he just runs away. And then that's when he runs into the other Jokers. And he's still kind of out of it. So they shove him in the car, and the rest of the movie happens. Yeah, I really felt like that's what should have happened there. If you want to keep this whole rejection of the Joker persona, again, because of the events that happened before, I totally get it. But we need that final battle. This, I think, is something that is missing in so many movies nowadays. I think, do your artistic expression, yes, but you gotta have the final expression of the character. That's gotta. This is what movies are about. This is what great writing is about. It's always about that final speech and what that speech means. You know what I mean? That's what I felt was missing from Speak No Evil, was that Mackenzie Davis's character needed to unleash and say what she was actually feeling throughout that whole movie to James McAvoy, and she didn't. We just kind of get a generic action sequence. And here again, it needed to be Harley pulling him out of the rubble, and this fantasy of Joker that they're together. But maybe in his fantasy, he doesn't have the Joker makeup on anymore. You know what I mean? Or some part of it has come off. Or maybe the fantasy ends with him looking at her, and in the fantasy, the final shot, he doesn't have the makeup anymore. You know what I mean? And seeing the rejection both ways. I really feel like editing wise, some of the musical sequences I would have tried to intercut with live action somehow, create a more direct relationship to the present, just for fluidity's sake, because I felt in many ways it was like all of these things were edited separately, and they were kind of kept preciously separate. You know what I mean? It was a thing that I was taught in film school. You have to kill your darlings. You know, you may really love a scene that you wrote or that you shot, but if it doesn't make the movie better, you got to get rid of it. And to me, I don't think anything really needed to be removed from the movie. It's just more how it interacted with the movie, I felt would have been better. You know, if Joker's killing fantasies were happening during the court scene, I think it would elevate the court scene. You know, and at the very least, it would give people that sense of having their pound of flesh, but realizing consciously, oh, Arthur's making the choice. Arthur's driving the car. Even though Joker is making the fantasy, if you intercut it like that, I think that would make those, it would both satisfy the audience that they're getting a pound of flesh, but also would make them understand the artistic argument that this is not really what Arthur wants. That he's fantasizing about it, but it's not what he wants. And in the exact same terms of what the cartoon showed at the beginning, because the cartoon shows the wrestling back and forth of the shadow. So if you show that wrestling visually through the cross-cutting of his fantasy of abusing the court people, that would, to me, would make it have the impact it needs to have to both satisfy the audience, but also communicate to the audience properly with good storytelling flow what Arthur is going through emotionally. That he is in a tug battle match with his good and dark side still in this moment. Not necessarily that he thinks he has multiple personality disorder, just that that's what his struggle is. That's how deeply he feels it. Where his mind is thinking one thing as he's trying to be Arthur, and then use that editing, especially when he's talking to Gary, if you mix it with that or whatever. I mean, you use that editing somewhere in the court sequence so that it just the communication hits harder. That's what I feel there. I think, and I do think the live action, you know, some of the live action singing where it's not a fantasy could have just been shortened here and there. Once the audience gets the point, just get out of there. Come on, we don't need the whole thing. I think, but I do think it's because, look, editing a feature film, editing a short, making 007 I Only Need One, which was only 15 minutes. It took me like, I don't know, 5 months, maybe more, to edit that to completion. And I'm just talking about the basic editing. Maybe it was 4.5. But just the basic editing, without color correction, without music, took 4.5 months of getting it down, cutting all the individual scenes, putting it all together, and then working on that flow of how the edit works. Just that took so long. Also it's because I was working, so I wasn't just editing. But yeah, to get the edit that good takes that much time. So if you're editing a feature film, the first half is going to be the tighter half, because you're starting off with all that fresh energy. Like, oh, I got my cut, I got everything here. You have all that fresh energy flowing through you. But by the time you get to the later half of the movie, you're running out of energy, you're running out of juice. And I definitely, that's just, again, even with my short film, there's things that in retrospect I wish I cut. But at the time it seemed so important. And that's just kind of part of the process of making the bread. But I do feel like these editing choices, and just having this little conflict with Lady Gaga outside the courthouse, having it be her that made the explosion, having this little conflict, I really think that would be more effective emotionally. And again, the cross-cutting of the court fantasy with the court scene, I think that would be better. And I feel like we should not have had so many Joker being in court scenes. I think it should have been pared down, because he kind of has 3 days as Joker in these court scenes. I think it should have been cut down to 2. And the first day is all of his scenes with these people, with him really jokering out, and the second day is his turning back to Arthur with the explosion and all that. Because when it's parsed out to 3, I think it makes it also a less big of an event that Joker has finally appeared in physical form, and that's not a fantasy anymore. That's just my thoughts. That's the only thing I feel like, if you want to keep the story as it is, that's what I would do. While just adding one scene with Lady Gaga, have her fight verbally, not with music, but verbally, just say it. Because the difference between the two of them is that she is not actually crazy. She's fanatical. And this is where we would know it, because Arthur just can't communicate through words. When he feels things, he feels them through music and through emotion. But she is logical. She's trained in psychology. She knows how to play with him and manipulate him. And that's what she's doing. But this final speech that she should have is entirely about what she emotionally has wanted this whole time. It's like, I just want to stand next to the Joker and have her say pudding. You know what I mean? Have her say pudding. You're my pudding, I really feel like she should have said my pudding in this movie, because I do think her portrayal was very good. I think but this scene could have been a nice place to put it. You are, and always just have her say, run away with me, Joker. I blew up this place for you. You said you want to blow up and start new. Run away with me. You are and always have been my pudding. The proof in the pudding, the most delicious thing I've ever tasted. It's you. I love you. You're mine, and I'm yours, Joker. I would do anything for you. And have that end with him saying, could you call me Arthur? And have her just have this look, and the look would tell you that she is in fact a normal person, just fanatical. There's just the same look that everyone else gives them, like, you fucking idiot, what's wrong with you? You know what I mean? Just have her look like that. That would be everything you need to know. Forget the other scene on the stairs. We don't need that singing scene. I get where it's coming from. I think in scripted form, I bet that probably rocks. But I do think when you're watching it and you're going through it, because the other scenes are all preciously done the way they're done, I do think it kind of slogs. You know what I mean? It kind of slogs a little. But yeah, that's all I feel needs to be done to keep the story as it is. And I would dare say one more bold edit change I would do. Maybe start off with the murder. Just start the movie off after the animated intro. Start the movie off with the very last scene where Joker is... The court scene's already happened. We don't know what's happened in that court scene. But you see people are kind of angry and upset with him. And then he gets stabbed. Have that be the beginning of the movie. Have the movie begin with him getting stabbed and ending on the floor, the way that the first movie begins with him getting beaten up and end up at the floor. I know there is that mirrored conclusion by having it at the end, but I think it might have been a better choice to put it at the start of the movie. Just start off the movie letting people know where this is going, and then work our way back. Like, how did we get here? Who was waiting for him? You know what I mean? And then when you go to the end of the movie, you could just use a shot. If you wanted to do it, you could use a shot of Harley waiting at the visitor's booth from the other scene where she puts the makeup on the window and Joker smiles. Just use that shot where she's sitting there waiting, and that's the end of the movie. You know, that maybe she changed her mind. We don't know what she would have said. But yeah, that's what I would do in such a way that preserves what I feel the film is trying to say. Let me know if you think that would be cool. Now that I've gotten through what I would think would preserve the movie in Todd Phillips' form, and in terms of what he was going for, I'm going to tell you what I wanted, okay? This is what I wanted. This is the part where technically I'm kind of agreeing with the audience. It's not that I think it's a bad movie, but it didn't go the way I wanted. This is what I wanted. What I wanted was for this movie to end with essentially Harley Quinn. You know, if you're going to have the whole angel versus demon battle, I'm all for it, but have it end with Harley Quinn blowing up the place, Joker and her running away together, and essentially have them being the ones who get in the car together. And in the car, we have the graduate ending, where it's like, hey, we've gotten away. What are we going to do? You know what I mean? And just have it end like with, what are we going to do now that we've gotten away? And set up a sequel. Come on, you did Hangover 1, 2, 3, bro. You got to go do Joker 3, man. And I would have the sequel be Bonnie and Clyde, Joker and Harley Quinn, where Joker is fully given in, where this movie is ultimately the tragedy of how a man could have become a man again, but instead chose his dark side, went full dark side. The shadow doesn't run away at the end of the movie. He sticks around and takes control of the body. And Joker and Harley Quinn run away, get in the car, and we have the graduate ending. I think that would have been such an uplifting ending for the movie that would be both audience satisfactory, but also setting up a sequel. You know what I mean? It's like, oh shit, he got out? He got out! He's running free! Oh shit, you know what I mean? Or even they get out, but police show up and they get separated, so we can have that little car sequence, but then they connect again. You know, if what I really want is just one more action sequence, Harley Quinn driving up, give me my pudding, you know, and then, you know, they get in the car, but still end it with the graduate ending. They get away in the car. It's a clear getaway, and we're setting up the sequel, Joker and Harley Quinn, and have it be the final third movie be the Bonnie and Clyde, where Joker full shadow, embracing its shadow, is going around giving Gotham carnage, and wherever he goes his followers are kind of looking for him and hoping to find him, and Joker's just tormenting Gotham City. And all the while, young Bruce Wayne is watching this on the news, just kind of getting a sense of how bad Gotham City is. And maybe there's more riots and more madness. Just Joker 3 should be just full-on absolute carnage. But having the Bonnie and Clyde ending. I'm okay with just copying the Bonnie and Clyde script, but with Joker and Harley, and having that be the third Joker movie. That's what I really wanted. That's my fantasy out of these movies. But the movie goes the way it goes. So what I suggested is just what I feel would make the movie more palatable for the general audience. I think that would have been the right way to go. Just some easy intercutting and just a little bit of shooting. Maybe it would be a full day, but just literally one day of shooting with Lady Gaga, getting a little speech out, and just to have that last fight. I think that's all the movie needed. The audience just needs a conclusion. The audience just needs the explosion, the eruption. And it's okay if you're going to deflate one character, the other still needs to explode. So, because you've set up the ticking time bomb. If you don't blow it up, the audience is going to feel like, oh, well, that's wasted. At least you got to show the time bomb being diffused. So if you're not going to show what happened to Arthur and truly show how broken he was, then you got to show Harley Quinn doubling down and then the rejection. Can you call me Arthur? I think that would be great. But that's just my thoughts, so let me know if you agree with that in the comments. Let me know if what I wanted is what you wanted. God damn it. You know what I mean? But also, let's keep it respectful. I don't even want any Todd Phillips hate. I don't want to see that. Like, look, you don't like the movie, you don't like the movie. I don't want any just hatred or putrid shit on this video. Because I really liked the movie. I really felt where it was coming from. And I hope that if this is the way he wants to end Joker, that's fine. Please do just one more character, though. Or do a Harley Quinn movie. Do something. Do one more character, because I think what he's doing is so on to something. It's so good and juicy. I want to see one more movie that takes these notions that he's going for. And then, just let him do what he does. But then, please, Todd, come to me. I will help you meet in the middle, I think. Because I consider myself, although I've been a filmmaker for 17 years, I still consider myself a regular audience member at heart. So I am always having these two things battle out in my head anyway. But that's what I think. Let me know if you like my thoughts in the comments. Have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for watching. Adieu.